Hey there, and welcome to game 3, or I should say match 3 of this vintage cube draft. This is for the tournament, and well, we're gonna mulligan this. We got one white source and a colorless source. Now this is a keep. I like this hand a lot. Oh, especially scrying with a Mox Pearl on top. That's perfect. So that basically gives us a turn 1 Spirit of the Labyrinth, which is a 3/1, and stops our opponent from any hijinks as far as drawing cards. We got a turn 2 Boros Reckoner, and then if need be, we even have a Council's Judgment. Yeah, this hand's awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get our 3/1 out and online quickly. Depending on what we draw and what our opponent puts down, next turn we have Boros Reckoner. That's kind of awesome. Be able to get across consistently, hopefully, with 6 damage. And if our opponent wants to do direct damage to the Reckoner, they're going to take some damage as well. Oh, and perfect draw, Armageddon. So depending on how things go here, we can get 6 power on the board. And if our opponent doesn't really have an answer, we can Armageddon the following turn and hopefully close out the game. So I guess that's the plan right now. And that's exactly why this Armageddon's in the deck, is for situations like this. We just jump ahead with some small creatures. Not 2 small creatures, though, 3 power creatures. And then hopefully just take over the game with Armageddon. So our opponent plays an island. Okay. Now, could have a counter spell. We could play around the counter spell, but I do feel like we just go for it here. Worst case scenario, it gets countered. We still are getting in for 6 damage, bringing him down to 11. And then at that point, we have some disruption in our hand anyway. So I think we would be fine if it got countered, but it doesn't. So, okay, we'll get in for 6. We have our Mox Pearl, which is nice, but our opponent will have to rebuild from scratch now, facing down 6 damage a turn with 11 life points. And draw doesn't help us, but that's fine. We're going to attack in for 6. With a swamp, there's definitely some removal spells that we could get hit with. But if our opponent doesn't find an answer here, that will be game. Lightning Bolt's going to take out the 3/1. Which again, it's awkward because getting rid of the Boros Reckoner now really has to be truly a destroy spell, or our opponent won't be able to use it. Assuming it gets in for the 3 damage here. Opponent's down to 1. Has to draw some sort of destroy. No, doesn't do it. So we'll go to game 2 as a quick game 1. As far as sideboarding goes, we didn't really see anything. Our opponent seems to be playing multiple colors. We know that. We saw black, blue, the Mana Confluence, which was for any color. We saw a red spell with Lightning Bolt. So there were definitely multiple colors, but we really don't know anything else. So at this point, probably not really going to change anything. We'll just kind of go and hope we can pull something off again similar to what we just did. And once you're in the finals, and you gotta assume your opponent's got a good deck. I mean, we just had an explosive start there. This hand, not as good as last time, but it's decent. We got the Mox Pearl, we got the land tax and the plains. That's good. We have some disruption with the Banisher Priest. We got some power and toughness we can put on the board, so it's an easy keep. Now, Library of Alexandria, that's a huge drop for our opponent. That card is just pure card advantage, especially in the early game like this. Our opponent may want to hang on to some lands to keep 7 cards in their hand, which makes our land tax a little worse. Now we draw Armageddon. We could try a similar line as last game. It's just not going to be as fast or as explosive, and we are going against more cards this time. So it might not be as a done deal as last game. Okay, our opponent has to play land at this point to start something. So that's going to give us a land tax opportunity. We'll get in and take it. Draw all 3 planes. Or take all 3 planes, I should say. I almost always take all 3 planes when I land tax. However, my strategy is going to be a little different this game because I am holding Armageddon, and I don't want to overland tax to the point where I start pitching lands and then later I can't get a hold of lands, especially if something happens to land tax. So I'm going to be a little more conservative than I normally am with land tax. I don't know. I think that's the play. Maybe the next couple of land taxes, probably only land tax for 2. Later on, maybe even skip a land tax, but we'll see how things play out. Spectral Procession is going to give us some threats on the board. Again, here comes another draw, though, another big draw from Library of Alexandria. And we can't imagine winning this game if this continues. So all the more reason to destroy that land. And here's Jace, speaking of card advantage. So Jace Vern's Prodigy is another card that we have to really deal with quickly here. So we get a land tax trigger. Our opponent gives us another one, but they kind of have to. I think at some point they're going to stop giving us this opportunity. Kind of thinking, I mean, do we want to go in and do it for like 2 lands? We're going to play 1 land. We have 7 cards in hand. May have to discard 1, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm being a little more conservative with this than I normally would be. We'll do 1 this time, and we draw a Strip Mine. So okay, here's our deal. We want to get rid of Library, and we want to get rid of Jace. I mean, we do have to kind of play around Daze or Force of Will, I guess, but to some degree, how can you really play around those? I mean, you have to do something at some point, right? What's nice, Strip Mine can't be countered. So the line I'm taking here, I'm going to use Banisher Priest to try to get rid of Jace. And then I'm just going to go ahead and Strip Mine the Library because I know that can't be countered, can't be dazed. Probably should have played the Mine first, actually, in case he did have Daze. But our opponent doesn't, apparently. So that's good. Now, another line, which may have been a better line, I could have just gone ahead and played a Plains and an Armageddon that still would have gotten rid of the Library. Jace would have still been on the board. We would have had 3 power toughness flying in every turn. Jace would continue to be able to loot, but our opponent would have no mana. So I have no doubt they draw it quickly. So I don't know. I don't know if that would have been better or not, quite honestly. I mean, maybe it would have been if our opponent just didn't draw into any lands, but with the ability to loot, I can't imagine that they wouldn't have been able to build up lands just as quickly as we would. And then if they found an answer for our 1/1 tokens, that would have been, we would have been kind of back to equal. So I don't know, maybe that would have been a better play, but it's tough. I don't hate what I did there. I'm going to take 2 Plains this time. Again, I'm being a little more thoughtful. Now he's got blue up. We haven't seen a counter spell from him yet, though, so I'm just going to go for it. Last game, we didn't see counter spells. This game, though, is different. Is a charm, so yeah, we can't pay 2 more, so it's countered. Not the end of the world, and we still have 5 power on the board right now. Plenty of lands, and we have 2 more pretty impressive creatures in our hand that we'll be able to play. Just have to see what our opponent does. So we try to get in there for some damage. Lightning Bolt's going to get rid of the Banisher Priest. And Jace will come back. So kind of back to where we were, just without the Library. Opponent's going to get to fetch. Definitely playing, looks like 5 colors here. And worst possible card for us right now. Maelstrom Pulse is going to basically wipe our board. So there you have it. Good removal, even if it didn't get all our tokens like that. Still would have been a decent card to play, but oh, okay. Ancestral Recall, which Jace can flash back if he wants to. So we're just getting buried in card advantage here. I mean, our only hope is to hope that he basically whiffs, get some lands or something, and what we can do is play two pretty formidable creatures and just try to get into attack. The Wrath of God feels like a dead card. We haven't seen any big creature plays from him, so it looks like our opponent's probably more focused on planeswalkers or big spells or burn, maybe. I don't know. Okay, well, this helps us kind of bury Jace, so we'll do that anyway. Before that gets out of hand. Too late, right? So it buys us a few turns before Jace is going to come back again. And it gets the counters basically reset for when he's replayed. Of course, he will get another loot out of it too. Alright, now our opponent's sticking with the 4 lands. I think they're respecting the land tax. But Izzet Signet comes out, probably the best Signet in the cube, just in the colors you want to be in a lot of cases. Rashad Import, it's okay for us. Might keep our opponent off a color like black, but they seem to have a lot of options. So it's probably not super in this matchup, at least at this stage of the matchup. So instead, we're just going to try to put some power on the board and hope our opponent doesn't have an answer. Which probably unlikely considering what we've seen from their deck. And there's the Terminate. It's going to get rid of the Boros Reckoner. The Crusader is going to be harder to get rid of with the pro green and pro black, especially if there's a lot of multicolor spells in their deck. But that can also be chump blocked or what have you by creatures of other colors, or it can be stolen with treachery. That's pretty devastating. Now they did play the 5th land. We have 5 lands. They're just kind of keeping up with us. Treachery is huge. It's a huge play. So they've taken our creature, and we're gonna have to basically Wrath to take it out of their hands probably. But at the same time, now our opponent also has 5 mana up plus a Signet and 4 cards in hand, so I can't believe they don't have another play here. Treachery, one of the best cards in the cube too. Just a phenomenal card. Messes with the board state and gives you all your land back, and it combos great with things like Tolarian Academy and Gaia's Cradle. Crazy. Kind of waiting for a follow-up play. They don't have it, or they're holding their mana, one of the two. And after all of the land taxing we did, we still draw planes. Go figure. So, I mean, we're at 20. We could take 1 or 2 hits from this, and it's not the end of the world. But again, I don't know if we're going to get a lot of value out of this Wrath of God. Our opponent just doesn't seem to really be playing with a lot of creatures. Just taking our creatures, so we'll Wrath. Seems like as good a time as any. I don't know. Probably could have played Port last turn, and then I could have ported down the Watery Grave. It would have been probably a little bit of a safer play, even though our opponent really hasn't done a whole lot. And here we get more creature removal. Not that it's useless creature removal, but we still haven't seen a lot of creatures from our opponent. What's kind of nice, though, is we have it since we've used our Wrath, and now we can use it on Jace. So actually, that makes it worthwhile. That's right. I wasn't thinking Jace was coming back so soon, but yeah, it's been 3 turns already. So yeah. So depending on what we draw here, oh, we get a Wormcoil Engine. So that's pressure, but Jace is very dangerous. So unfortunately, we're 1 land short of doing both this turn. We pull Jace off the board. Again, I probably could have used my port on the Watery Grave. That would have been a safer play. Again, not that I've seen anything that's concerned me that much coming from the black mana, but it would have been probably a smarter play. Don't think it would have. Well, our opponent tapped out, so I would have kept them off Garrick if I did it. So it would have been smarter to port there for sure. It's kind of a beating at this point for us. They're going to be able to just make creatures, destroy our stuff. Making Death Touch creatures is what's really backbreaking here because of the Worm Coil engine. Great creature. It will gain a 6 life, but then it will die, split into 2, but then they can make another Death Toucher. At some point, we just kind of lose that battle. We have the Parallax Wave, though that's kind of the play right now, I guess, is to kind of hope that we can just wave away a couple of creatures and then maybe deal with our opponent or Garrick, but it's asking a lot. And oh, there you go, there's Control Magic. Another great card in this cube. So now we're forced to basically wave the Worm Coil and whatever tokens our opponent has. And we're still just left with the Plains in hand. So things aren't looking so hot. Could have slowed our opponent down a turn, I think, if I ported that last turn, but I don't know if it would have made that much of a difference, quite honestly, because they would just play Garrick this turn and make the creature. Next turn, they can still control magic. So, kind of is what it is. I assume they're holding their land in their hand at this point. They've been sticking with 4 cards, and I don't think they want to outrun our land count for land tax. They don't want us to land tax. And it's a lot of opponents don't play around the land tax. Your better opponents do. I think people that realize the power of that card play around it. A lot of people don't understand the power of that card. So the wave comes to an end. So we do get our Worm Coil engine back, but they get Jace back. We have the Oblivion Ring, however, that we drew, which can take care of Garrick. So we're closer to stabilizing. So now it's just going to come down to what our opponent has in their hand. So we can Oblivion Ring Garrick. That's good. Next turn, our Worm Coil engine will no longer have Summoning Sickness, so we can try to get in there. This turn I am porting down Tropical Island. Try to take them off double blue or double green. At this point I'm more concerned about double green. There's some big green creatures they could be playing. Or I guess not really taking off double blue, but since they have Watery Grave. But the double green now they don't really have an option for. So Jace flips. Probably going to bring back, oh, there you go. Or you can just play Abrupt Decay. There you have it. That works too. So if I took him off the black with the port instead, I could have prevented the Abrupt Decay. I really didn't see that coming, quite honestly. But it's hard when your opponent's playing 5 colors. I mean, they could have almost anything. You can't really play around everything, right? We just chose to play around the wrong thing there. And that will bounce our creature. So in one turn they got us back to a point where we maybe we're looking good, and now we're not looking so hot again. And they get a creature. The Ancestral Recall still in the graveyard too, waiting to get recast. Alright, well, we got some power to put down. But again, the Death Touch creatures make us very awkward. The First Striker's great. It's going to help us because they just can basically chump block that. And we can still port here if we want to. This time I'm going to take off the black. Trying to prevent any more crazy removal spells from coming at us. Now our opponent has a swamp, so it kind of opens up some more possibilities for them. Looks like there's the Ancestral Recall. Now we're really getting buried in card advantage. They actually only have 11 cards left in their deck at this point. So it looks like they're playing. I mean, really, we still haven't seen that much. I mean, we've seen some disruption. We saw the 2 control magic cards. There's a Mana War. Yeah, this is just a tempo deck, basically. Tempo with Planeswalkers. Card draw. I mean, our Spirit of the Labyrinth would be fantastic if it was out and could stay alive. But this is a good deck. It's got the removal, it's got the disruption, it's got the card draw. They have a lot of stuff going on, and it curves into things like Garrick. Pretty good. Beating this deck, we'll probably have to do kind of like what we did in game 1. I don't think we're going to win any long games against this thing. We just don't have enough ways to take care of the Planeswalkers. We can disrupt it a little bit and slow it down, but in the long run, it's very hard for us to get traction when there's 2 Planeswalkers on the board. We get a Mox. Doesn't really help us at this point. I'll tap down something at this point. Doesn't really matter what, quite honestly. Kind of back on the plan to keep him on a single green. But even with port, we're still getting Nicol Bolas. Okay. All right. Well, then, that will take care of the Wormcoil Engine. And, yeah. So I don't even know what we could draw. We've drawn all our removal, our mass removal. We get a creature. So at this point, all I'm going to do is just yield and just see if our opponent wants to show us any more of their deck. I'm not going to show any more of our deck. Let them do their thing and get in for the attack. Okay. So they didn't really show us anything else. Alright. So I don't even know if there's anything on our sideboard that really helps against this. I think our Wrath of God and our Parallax Wave are still fine cards, considering our opponent can steal cards left and right. A Mana Tithe, I don't know. People don't always play around Mana Tithe, but they seem to have a lot of land. They may even be playing 18 lands in that deck. Yeah, I don't really see anything that's going to help us here, quite honestly. Said all the answers. Maelstrom Pulse takes care of some things. And I'm thinking of, we can bring in the Relic Warrior, the Cat Cleric, maybe the Mana Tithe. I don't know though, quite honestly. So if there's any cards in our deck that don't feel very good, but I can't really say there's anything that I felt was useless. I could take out we have a lot of 3-drops, but 3-drops are very, very good 3-drops. That's kind of the key, especially if we draw Mox. Our 3-drops are what's going to help us win a game quickly. Hangerbacks maybe not as good in some ways in this situation because we're going to have to tie up our mana a little bit, our time. Yeah, I'm not going to use the Mana Tithe. I just don't think it's going to do anything. What's nice about the creature you can sacrifice to destroy a enchantment is it can take care of a treachery or control magic. So I'm probably just going to take Hangerback out and put that in, I think. And that's probably about it. And Hangerback's fine, especially if you're going to sweep the board, but it's awkward if it gets stolen and then we're in a situation where we have to sweep the board and our opponent ends up with a bunch of flyers. That would be bad. So Hangerback's not really good in this matchup. Alright. Well, this is a good start. We get a Mox, and granted it's not on color, but we got a turn 1 Spirit of the Labyrinth, which could really slow our opponent's deck down, especially if they're keeping a library hand. We really need to draw some land, though, aside from that, for this to be good. Now, if we could get down, like, say, a Bramaz and maybe even Armageddon at that point. But we need to draw the lands. So, but I think it's a keep. I think it's a definite keep. It's potentially explosive enough to win, and there's a lot of hands against this deck we're not going to win. So if we don't win fast, we're not going to win. Waiting for like a Thoughtseize or something. We haven't really seen that yet from our opponent. Oh, Mox. Okay, that's huge. That's exactly what we needed. So now we have a couple turn 3 plays. One is disruptive. One is just pressure. Obviously, we'll put Bramaz out here. And then if we draw another land, we get Armageddon. So if we stay ahead of our opponent, we can Armageddon. We'll have to be a little more careful to play around Is It Charm this time. It's kind of nice, too, is when we Armageddon, we have 2 Moxes out. Sand would have been huge if we drew a second land, like instead of the Worm Coil. Well, Is It Charm? But our opponent can't play anything right now, and we get the land, so this is perfect. So again, we could get Dazed or Force of Will, but we pretty much saw our opponent's entire deck. I mean, we were down to 9 or 10 cards last time, and plus what they had in their hands. So we can't afford to stall to play around those cards, considering the situation. So we get in for 3. Let's Armageddon. I'm sorry, we get in from Bramaz. We get in for 6. There's 7. We got the creature, the token too. That was a huge turn. Yeah, our opponent has no answer to that. So we did it. We got there. So that was actually pretty awesome. Vintage Cube. By the time you guys watch this, Vintage Cube will probably be over because I got spoilers and stuff that I'm putting out. But just wanted to get a chance to put some gameplay out there for you, and we're lucky enough to win one. So there you have it. This was actually the first Vintage Cube I had a chance to play. I got to do one more before. I don't think I'll get to do another one. So I have another one that I'll probably post at some point as well. That's I have coming up. But yeah, that's it. I hope you like this format. This seemed to work well for me, I think, being able to go back and commentate over what I did. Let me know in the comments below if you like that. But having said that, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality videos for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a good day.